There was a moment in the ancient city of Babylon when a young man named Daniel was told that everything he had known was over. His home was gone. His city had fallen. The language around him was foreign. The food on the table was not his. And the name they gave him was not the name his mother had spoken over him as a child. By every visible measure, he had been erased. By every visible measure, the story was finished before it had truly begun. And yet, in that same season of erasure, something in Daniel refused to be renamed at the level that mattered most. He kept his face turned toward the window. He kept his prayer. He kept the frequency of who he was, even when everything around him insisted he was someone else. And heaven did not forget him. Heaven was, in fact, watching him more closely in that season than in any season before it. That moment in Babylon is not as far from your living room as it sounds, because right now, in this season of your life, you have felt some version of what Daniel felt. Not the chains, not the exile, but the interior version of it. The feeling that something has been taken. The feeling that the name the world has given you does not match the one you carry inside. The feeling that you have been placed in a foreign season, surrounded by people who do not speak the language of what you are. Becoming, waiting for something to shift, waiting for heaven to remember where it put you. Chosen one, this message was assembled specifically for you. Not for the version of you that is managing and coping and holding it together in public. For the version of you that woke up at 3 in the morning recently and could not explain to anyone why. For the version of you that has been sensing, at the edge of every ordinary day, that something enormous is approaching. That something in your life, or around your life, is about to be dramatically interrupted by the hand of God. You are here because you carry a specific set of signs. And those signs are not burdens. They are credentials. The first sign is that your dreams have shifted in this season. They are longer, stranger, more layered than usual, and you wake from them with the feeling that something was communicated even when you cannot fully translate what it was. The second sign is a restlessness that has no clean address. It is not depression, and it is not anxiety, though it sometimes borrows their clothing. It is the friction of a person who was built for more, pressed up against a season that has not yet opened. The third sign is that certain people and certain places that used to feel like home have begun to feel like they belong to an older version of you that you are quietly shedding. The fourth sign is that the same message keeps arriving through different doors. A song, a stranger's words, a passage that falls open to the right page, a stillness in the middle of a busy afternoon that says, "Pay attention." You have been receiving a signal, and the fifth sign is the most important one. Deep in your chest, beneath the tiredness and the questions and the long stretch of waiting, there is a knowing, a settled, unshakable knowing that something is about to change, not eventually. Now, that knowing is not wishful thinking. In Daniel's story, the knowing came before the deliverance. The awareness that something was moving in the unseen realm arrived before any visible evidence appeared, and the chosen ones in every generation have shared that same experience. They sense the shift before they see it. They feel the arrival before it knocks. God is trying to warn you right now, and a warning from heaven is not a sign that you are in trouble. It is a sign that you are close enough to something significant, that the divine is leaning in to make sure you are prepared. A major arrest is coming. And in the language of heaven, an arrest is not always a punishment. Sometimes an arrest is the moment when something that has been running unchecked against your destiny is finally stopped. Something that has been blocking your path, draining your purpose, or holding you in a cycle that was never meant to be permanent, is about to be brought to a halt by a hand far greater than your own. You did not stumble onto this message. Daniel did not stumble into his destiny either. He was carried there, even through the hands of those who meant him harm, even through the loss of everything familiar. And what looked like the end of his story was actually the beginning of the chapter that would make his name worth remembering across thousands of years. Your chapter is opening. The ancient moment and your present moment are not separated by centuries. They are connected by the same God, the same faithfulness, and the same pattern of divine interruption that has always looked like success from the outside and looked like promotion from the inside. You were not almost ready. You were ready the moment you showed up here. There is something that no one has said to you yet, and it is the thing you have needed to hear more than almost anything else in this season. Not the encouragement that tells you to keep going, not the reminder that things will get better. Something more specific than that. Something that reaches into the exact texture of what you have been living and calls it by its right name. Because one of the heaviest things about being in a season of waiting is not the waiting itself. It is the silence around the waiting. It is the fact that everyone around you seems to be moving, building, arriving, celebrating, and you are standing in what feels like the same place you were standing a year ago, or 2 years ago, or longer than you are comfortable admitting out loud, and no one around you has a language for what that actually feels like from the inside. So let me give you that language now. You have been experiencing a sudden and unexpected wave of grief about the past. Not a grief that makes sense on the surface, because nothing new has happened to trigger it, but a grief that arrives without warning, sometimes in the middle of a completely ordinary moment, and fills you with a sadness you cannot fully explain. You find yourself thinking about a version of your life that did not happen, a relationship that did not make it, a door that closed before you were ready, a season that ended before you felt finished with it, and you grieve it quietly, privately, because you have told yourself that it is too late to grieve something that old. But the grief keeps returning because it has not been honored, it has not been named. And the chosen one in a season of transition carries grief differently than other people, because the grief is not just about what was lost. It is about the awareness of what was possible and the ache of not yet seeing it fully realized. The second thing you have been experiencing is that familiar places and familiar people have begun to feel strangely heavy. You go back to a place you used to love and something is off, not in the place, but in you. You sit in a conversation with someone you have known for years, and you feel a distance that has no clean explanation. It is not that you love them less. It is that you are no longer the same person who built that familiarity, and the version of you that is emerging does not quite fit the spaces that the old version of you shaped. This is deeply disorienting. It makes you question your own heart. It makes you wonder if you are becoming cold or distant or ungrateful. You are none of those things. You are changing, and change at the soul level always creates a temporary placement before it creates a new belonging. The third thing is a dream, or a recurring image, or a recurring feeling that shows up in your dreams. A door that is closed, or a threshold you cannot cross, or a hallway that leads to a room you cannot quite enter. This image keeps returning in different forms because your spirit is processing something your waking mind has not fully received yet. The door in the dream is real. It represents an opening that is coming, a threshold that you are being prepared to cross. The reason you cannot enter it in the dream yet is not because you are being denied. It is because the preparation is still happening. The door is not locked. It is being readied. The fourth sign is the one that has felt the strangest to you because it cannot be explained rationally. The The same message keeps finding you through different sources. A word in a sermon that lands in your chest with unusual weight. A line in a book you picked up casually. A song that comes on at the exact moment you needed to hear exactly that. A stranger who says something in passing that sounds like it was written specifically for your situation. This is not coincidence. This is the chosen one's experience of divine calibration. When heaven is trying to get a message to someone, it does not use one channel. It floods every available frequency until the message breaks through. You have been receiving a transmission. This message is part of that transmission. Now let me speak to the pain underneath all of this. Because beyond the signs, there is a specific kind of suffering that belongs to this season. And it deserves to be acknowledged without being rushed past. You have not been sleeping the way you used to. Not because anything dramatic is wrong, but because something in you will not fully rest. The mind turns over the same questions at 2 in the morning that it turned over at 2 in the afternoon. And the darkness makes those questions louder. You have been managing a loneliness that is difficult to describe because it is not the loneliness of having no one around you. It is the loneliness of being around people and still feeling unseen. The loneliness of carrying something inside you that no one in your immediate circle has the capacity to hold with you. That is a particular kind of ache, and it is real, and it is valid, and it is not a sign that something is broken in you. It is a sign that you have been entrusted with a depth that your current environment has not yet been expanded to contain. You have also felt, at various points in this season, the specific pain of feeling wronged, of watching someone else receive what you believed you were working toward, of doing the right thing and watching the wrong thing get rewarded, of being honest when dishonesty would have served you better in the short term, of being loyal when loyalty was not returned. That pain is real. The injustice of it is real. And I am not going to move past it quickly because chosen ones in a season of waiting often carry that specific wound without anyone acknowledging it. You were not wrong to hope. You were not foolish to invest. And the fact that it did not return what you put in does not mean you were wrong. It means you were operating on a different economy than the people around you, and the return on that investment has not yet arrived in visible form. Now I want to redefine something for you, because the word waiting has been sitting on your chest like a punishment, and it needs to be lifted and turned over so you can see what is actually written on the other side. Waiting is not what happens to people who are behind. Waiting is not the experience of being forgotten or passed over or deemed not yet ready by a divine assessor who keeps moving the line. There are two completely different experiences that look identical from the outside. They feel nearly identical from the inside, but they are not the same thing. The first is being overlooked. The second is being positioned. Overlooked means you were seen and passed by. Positioned means you were placed with precision in exactly the location required for what is coming. And the painful irony of being positioned is that it feels almost indistinguishable from being overlooked, because in both cases, the visible evidence of your value has not yet appeared. In both cases, you are waiting. In both cases, the people around you may not be seeing what God sees in you. But here is the difference. When you are overlooked, the absence of recognition is the final word. When you are positioned, the absence of recognition is a temporary condition that exists specifically so that the right recognition from the right source at the right moment will find you undiluted by premature exposure. The chosen one who is positioned has been protected from being seen too soon. Because being seen too soon, before the preparation is complete, before the character has been deepened by the waiting, before the roots have grown down far enough to hold the weight of what is coming, would be the greater loss. You have not been forgotten. You have been hidden in the right hand until the moment arrived. This is the difference between a seed buried in the ground and a stone buried in the ground. To the eye looking down at the soil, they look the same. But one of them is in the process of becoming something that will feed and shelter and give life. The silence above the soil is not the silence of death. It is the silence of becoming. You were not passed over. You were planted. And now, chosen one, because you have stayed in this message long enough to let it reach the part of you that needed it most, I want to ask you to do one simple thing. If any part of what you just heard named something you have been feeling but could not say, if any part of this landed in you with the weight of recognition rather than just information, type the word "ready" in the comment right now. Not as a performance, as a declaration. Because declarations made at the right moment carry a spiritual weight that passive listening does not. The comment section of this message is not a social media gesture. It is a gathering place for chosen ones who are in the same season, hearing the same transmission, recognizing each other across the distance. And if this message is reaching you at the right moment, if something in you is stirring and you want that stirring to reach someone else who is lying awake tonight with the same unanswered questions, consider sharing this message before you move on. Not because it needs numbers, because somewhere in your circle, or just beyond it, there is another chosen one who is in the exact season you are in, and they have not yet found the language for what they are carrying. Your share is not a social media action. It is an act of care for someone you may not even know yet. If this channel has become a place where something in you exhales, where you feel less alone in the particular weight of your calling, consider subscribing so that the next message finds you the way this one did, without you having to go looking for it. And if you feel moved to support the work of creating these messages, there is a way to do that in the description below. Every contribution, no matter how small, extends the reach of this transmission to another chosen one who is still waiting to hear their situation named with this kind of precision. The season of silence over your life is not permanent. The positioning is almost complete, and what comes next is not a small adjustment. It is the thing the whole long waiting was pointing toward. You have just allowed something important to settle in you. The recognition that you have not been overlooked, but positioned. That the grief you have been carrying has a name. That the signs you have been noticing are not random, but deliberate. That the transmission has been reaching you through every available channel, because heaven has something specific to say to you in this season. That recognition is not small. Most people spend years in a waiting season without ever receiving the language to understand what they are inside of. You have received it, and now the question that naturally follows is this one. What do I do with it? What is the practical movement available to me today, right now, in the life I am actually living, before anything on the outside has visibly changed? This is the part where most spiritual content fails the listener. It leaves you with the feeling, but not the practice. It opens the door of awareness and then walks away without showing you where to step. I am not going to do that to you, because chosen ones in a season of positioning need something concrete to do, not because the doing earns the outcome, but because the body and the mind need a way to participate in what the spirit is already receiving. And when you give them that way, something aligns. Something inside you that has been slightly off frequency begins to correct itself, the way a compass needle settles when it finds true north. So I want to give you a specific practice, a protocol that is simple enough to do anywhere. in your car before you walk into work, in the quiet of your bedroom before the day begins, in a few stolen minutes during a lunch break that everyone else will spend scrolling. This practice has 3 steps, and each step builds on the one before it. You do not need any special equipment. You do not need a particular setting. You do not need prior experience with meditation or prayer practice or any particular tradition. What you need, you already have. You need your breath, your memory, your honesty, and 7 minutes. The name of this practice is the Frequency Alignment Protocol. That name is not accidental, because what you are doing in this practice is not manufacturing a new emotional state from nothing. You are returning to a frequency that already belongs to you, a frequency that was yours before the long season of waiting layered noise and doubt and exhaustion over the top of it. You are not trying to become someone new. You are clearing the interference so that who you already are can be heard again by yourself first, and then by everything around you that is waiting for you to show up at full signal. Step 1 is the practice of grateful interruption. This is not the gratitude practice you have heard about before, where you list the things you are thankful for and try to feel better about your circumstances. This is something more precise and more powerful than that. In step 1, I want you to think of one thing that did not happen. Not one thing you are grateful for that did happen, but one thing that almost happened, that was heading in a direction that would have been wrong for you, that was interrupted before it could become your reality. A relationship that looked right from the outside, but would have taken you somewhere painful. A job you pursued with everything you had and did not get, only to realize later, or perhaps you are only realizing right now, that getting it would have locked you into a life that was not yours. A door that closed with a sound that felt like rejection at the time, but that closed before you walked through it into something that would have cost you more than you can calculate. Sit with that one thing, the thing that did not happen, and instead of grieving it, or instead of simply being neutral about it, practice genuine and specific gratitude for the interruption. Say it out loud if you can. Say something like, I am grateful that this was stopped before it became my life. I am grateful for the protection I did not recognize as protection when it arrived. I am grateful that something in the divine economy was watching over my path, even when I was not watching carefully enough myself. This step does this one essential thing. It retrains your nervous system to recognize the hand of God in absence as clearly as it recognizes it in presence. Most chosen ones are very good at noticing divine provision when it arrives. But the protection that operates through interruption, through the closed door, through the prayer that was not answered in the way you asked for it, that protection goes unrecognized and therefore unfelt. And when it goes unrecognized, a specific kind of fear moves into the space it should have occupied. The fear that you are unprotected. The fear that the outcomes of your life are random. The fear that your effort and your faith and your consistency do not connect to anything larger than themselves. Step 1 dissolves that fear. The route by training you to see the whole picture, not just the arrivals but also the divine detours. Spend 2 minutes on step 1. Allow the specific memory to rise. Allow the gratitude to be genuine rather than performed. And notice what shifts in your chest when you stop mourning the thing that did not happen and begin thanking the force that stopped it. Step 2 is the statement of sacred alignment. This step is connected directly to the concept of time that this message carries at its core. The understanding that there is a kind of time that is not measured by clocks or calendars, a time that is measured by readiness and divine appointment. In step 2, you are going to make a declaration that places you inside that kind of time rather than inside the anxious, linear counting of days that has been exhausting you. The statement is this, and I want you to say it with your full breath behind it, not whispered but spoken, because the spoken word carries a physical frequency that the thought alone does not. Say this: I am not behind, I am not early, I am not waiting to arrive. I am already inside the appointed time. What is mine is not lost, it is aligned. And what is aligned cannot be taken from me by delay, by circumstance, or by the opinions of anyone who cannot see what heaven has written over my life. That statement is not positive thinking. It is a declaration of positioning. It is you placing your identity inside a frame that is larger than the visible evidence of your current circumstances. When Daniel was in Babylon, he was not making a positive declaration that contradicted reality. He was making a declaration that identified a reality that the visible evidence had not yet caught up to. The difference between wishful thinking and faith-based declaration is that wishful thinking looks at the visible and hopes for something different. Faith-based declaration looks at the invisible and names it as already true. You are practicing the latter in step 2. Spend approximately 2 minutes on step 2. Say the statement more than once if it feels mechanical the first time through. Let the words move from your mouth into your chest. Let them settle. Do not rush this step because it feels simple. The simplest steps are often the ones that do the deepest work, because the simple ones bypass the part of the mind that wants to argue and overthink and manage the experience. Step 3 is the 7 minutes of stillness, and this is where everything you have just done in steps 1 and 2 gets to land. After the grateful interruption, after the declaration of sacred alignment, you are going to sit in silence for 7 minutes, not meditating in any formal or complex sense, not trying to empty your mind or reach a particular state, simply sitting in the posture of someone who has just said everything that needed to be said and is now listening for the response. 7 minutes is a specific number, and it is not arbitrary. 7 minutes is long enough for the nervous system to shift out of its default state of alert and into a state of receptivity, but short enough that it does not feel like a demand on a life that is already full. 7 minutes is the threshold between effort and surrender. The first 2 or 3 minutes may feel restless. That restlessness is not a sign that you are doing it wrong. It is the noise of the day releasing. Let it release without following it. The middle minutes will feel quieter, and in those quiet minutes, particularly toward the 5th and 6th minute, something happens in the brain that science has only recently begun to measure, but that chosen ones throughout history have known through direct experience. A frequency activates. A signal becomes audible that was being drowned out by the volume of ordinary life. Not a voice necessarily, though sometimes it presents as a voice. More often it presents as a knowing, a clarity, a sense of direction that was not available to you before you entered the silence. This is the practice. 3 steps. 2 minutes for grateful interruption. 2 minutes for the declaration of sacred alignment. 7 minutes of receptive stillness. 11 minutes total, though I have been saying 7 because 7 is the heart of it, the place where the real work happens. What you will find if you practice this consistently over the coming days is not that your circumstances change immediately. What you will find is that your relationship to your circumstances changes, and that change in relationship is actually the first visible evidence that the deeper change is underway. When you stop fighting your season and start inhabiting it with intention, when you stop measuring your life against a timeline that was never actually yours and start moving from the place of already being inside the appointed time, the frequency you carry changes. And frequency is not metaphor. Frequency is physics. What you broadcast, you attract. What you resonate with, you draw closer. And as your frequency aligns with the truth of your positioning, rather than the fear of your delay, you will begin to notice that things start to respond to you differently. People will say things to you that feel timed too precisely to be random. Opportunities will surface in conversations you almost did not have. Resources will appear through channels you were not tracking. This is not magic. This is alignment. This is the chosen one returning to their own signal after a long stretch of interference, and watching the world begin to respond to who they actually are, rather than to who the long season of waiting had temporarily convinced them they might be. The practice does not require perfection. It does not require a perfectly quiet room, or a perfectly still mind, or a perfectly structured morning. It requires your honest presence, your willingness to show up for 11 minutes and let the frequency of your calling be heard again beneath the noise of everything that has been layering over it. Start today, not tomorrow, not after things settle down, not when the circumstances of your life become more conducive to this kind of stillness. Today, in whatever imperfect window of time is available to you, because the appointed time does not wait for the perfect conditions. It arrives into the conditions that are present, and it works with what is actually there. You have the practice now. And in what comes next, I want to show you the science behind why it works, because the bridge between the spiritual reality you have been living and the neurological reality your brain has been navigating is not as wide as you might think. In fact, they are describing the same phenomenon in two different languages. And when you hear both languages spoken over your experience at the same time, something clicks into place that is very difficult to unclick. There is a reason the practice in part 3 works, and the reason is not purely spiritual, though the spiritual dimension is real and it is primary. The reason also lives in the language of neuroscience, in the measurable, documentable, reproducible behavior of the human brain under specific conditions. And when you understand what is happening inside your brain during those 7 minutes of stillness, when you understand why the frequency you carry as a chosen one is not just a metaphor, but a literal, measurable signal, something shifts in the way you hold your own experience, because you stop wondering if what you are sensing is real. You stop second-guessing the awareness that has been building in you across this entire season, and you start treating your own mind the way it deserves to be treated, as the most sophisticated instrument available to you, an instrument that has been slightly out of tune, not through any fault of your own, but through the accumulated weight of a world that runs at the wrong frequency. Here is what the science has established. Chosen ones carry a specific frequency, not metaphorically, literally. Researchers in the field of neuroscience have identified a category of brainwave activity that corresponds to the states that have historically been described in spiritual language as clarity, revelation, flow, creative breakthrough, and heightened intuition. The scientific name for this frequency is gamma, and gamma waves, operating at the highest measurable range of normal brain activity, are associated with exactly the qualities that define the chosen one experience. Rapid information integration across different regions of the brain, heightened pattern recognition, the ability to hold multiple complex ideas simultaneously and sense the connections between them, the experience of insight that arrives whole rather than assembled piece by piece, the eureka moment, the sudden knowing, the clarity that descends after the long confusion. Gamma is not a mystical concept. It is a measurable electrical pattern, And it is the pattern that appears most consistently in the brains of people who are operating at the highest levels of creative, cognitive, and intuitive function. It appears in the brains of experienced meditators. It appears in the brains of individuals during moments of peak creative output. And it appears most interestingly in the brains of young children who have not yet been taught to suppress their natural intuitive responses, who have not yet been conditioned by a world that privileges linear thinking over whole brain awareness. This is where the spiritual and the scientific converge in a way that is almost breathtaking. Because the wisdom traditions have always said that the kingdom belongs to those who receive it as a child, and the neuroscience is now showing that children naturally produce the brainwave frequency associated with the highest states of human cognition and creativity. The innocence that the spiritual language points to is not merely moral. It is neurological. It is a frequency. And what the chosen one is being called back to in this season of their life is not a return to naivety, but a return to that original frequency. That full signal state of brain function that the noise and the pressure and the accumulated grief of the waiting season has been slowly obscuring. The researcher who has devoted more than 30 years of his life to understanding this connection is Dr. James Rivers, a neuroscientist whose training was conducted at MIT and whose research has included collaboration with NASA on studies examining the cognitive performance of individuals under conditions of extreme pressure and isolation. Dr. Rivers did not begin his research looking for a spiritual connection. He began it looking for a performance connection. He wanted to understand why some individuals, placed in identical conditions of stress and challenge, performed at extraordinary levels, while others collapsed. Why some people, when everything external was stripped away, found a clarity that seemed to operate from a source independent of their circumstances. And what his research revealed, across decades of study and thousands of hours of recorded brain data, was that the individuals who performed at those extraordinary levels shared a neurological signature. They were producing gamma waves at frequencies and durations that were measurably different from individuals who did not have access to that state. The question his research then turned to was this: is gamma wave production a fixed trait, something you either have or you do not? Or is it a trainable state, something that can be cultivated and accessed through the right conditions? The answer, which took years of careful study to establish with sufficient confidence, was that gamma is trainable, that the brain, given the right input, the right frequency of sound delivered in the right way, over the right duration of time, will naturally begin to synchronize with that input and produce the corresponding brainwave state. This is the principle known as brainwave entrainment, and it is one of the most well-documented and reproducible findings in the field of auditory neuroscience. The mechanism works like this. When the brain receives two slightly different audio frequencies, one in each ear through stereo headphones, it does not hear two separate tones. It registers the mathematical difference between those two tones and begins to produce a brainwave that matches that difference. This is called a binaural beat. If the difference between the two tones corresponds to the gamma frequency range, the brain begins producing gamma waves. If it corresponds to the theta range, which sits between 4 and 8 cycles per second and is associated with deep creativity, intuitive processing, and the kind of relaxed alertness that precedes breakthrough insight, the brain produces theta. The brain is not being forced into these states. It is being invited into them. It is being shown a frequency and allowed to recognize it and match it. The way a tuning fork placed near a vibrating string, will begin to vibrate at the same pitch without being touched. This is the technology at the heart of something called the genius wave, and I want to be precise about what it is and what it is not, because precision matters when we are talking about something that operates at the level of your brain's fundamental functioning. The genius wave is not a motivational audio track. It is not background music designed to make you feel good. It is a precisely engineered 7-minute audio protocol that uses binaural beats and isochronic tones, calibrated to guide the brain through a specific sequence of frequency states, beginning in the range associated with calm alertness, moving through the theta range, where deep creative and intuitive processing occurs, and arriving at the gamma threshold, where integration and insight become available. 7 minutes, because that is the duration Dr. Rivers' research identified as optimal for completing this neurological sequence without producing the kind of overstimulation that longer sessions can create. The result, for people who have used it consistently, has been described in terms that sound almost identical to what chosen ones describe when they talk about their experience of breakthrough. A clarity that was not there before. Sense of knowing that does not require effort. Creative solutions that arrive whole. A calm that does not depend on circumstances being resolved. An intuitive sense of the next right step that cuts through the noise of anxiety and second-guessing. Let me tell you about someone who came to this the way you are coming to it right now. A woman named Sandra, a single mother working 2 jobs, who had been in what she described as a fog for the better part of 3 years. Not depressed exactly, she told the person who shared her story, but not fully present either. Like she was watching her own life from slightly outside of it. She began using the genius wave in the only 7 minutes she could reliably find. The 7 minutes in her car before she walked into her second job. 3 weeks in, she described something she could not fully explain. She said the fog lifted, not dramatically, not all at once, but the way a room becomes lighter when someone opens a window you had forgotten was there. And in that clarity, she said, she knew what to do next, not in every area of her life, just the next step, and then the step after that, and then her life began to move again. Now I want to speak to something you might be feeling right now, because I know some of you are doing the math in your head and having a specific thought. $39 is not nothing, and I want to honor that thought rather than dismiss it, because it is a real thought and it comes from a real place, from a season of scarcity that has trained you to be careful. From a stretch of time during which every expenditure has felt like a risk, and that carefulness has served you. It is part of what has kept you intact through the long waiting season. But here is what I want you to hold alongside that carefulness. The cost of remaining at a frequency below your capacity is not free. The cost of continuing to move through your days with the interference layered over your signal, making decisions from a state of fog rather than clarity, missing the next step because the noise is too loud for the knowing to break through. That cost is real, and it has been accumulating across the entire length of this waiting season. $39 for access to a protocol that may give you back the clarity you have been trying to find through effort and willpower, and sheer force of consistency is not an expenditure. It is an investment in the instrument through which your entire destiny must pass. That instrument is your brain, and it deserves the same care and calibration that you would give to any tool that your life depends on. The regular price is $49. Through the link in the pinned comment below this message, you can access it today for $39. That access comes with a 90-day money-back guarantee, which means the entire risk of the decision is removed. If you use it consistently for 90 days and it does not deliver what it promises, you receive every dollar back. No conditions, no complicated process. One important note: because this protocol has been made available at this price through a limited and specific channel, there are versions being circulated through other links that are not the authentic program. Please purchase only through the single link in the pinned comment below. That is the only source through which the guarantee is valid and the authentic protocol is delivered. Do not allow a lower price from an unknown source to cost you what the real thing could give you. The link in the pinned comment is the only one I can stand behind. And because the pricing at this level is connected to a specific window of availability that Dr. Rivers' team has established for this release, I cannot guarantee that the $39 access point will still be there tomorrow. This is not a pressure tactic. It is a practical reality of how this program has been made available. If this message has reached you at the moment it was meant to reach you, which I believe it has, then the clarity about whether to take this step is already present in you. You do not need more time. You need to honor what you already know. And now, before we move any further forward, I need to stop. Because there is something that has not said yet in this message. Something that the forward momentum of hope and protocol and possibility can sometimes rush past too quickly, and rushing past it would be a disservice to you and to the real weight of what you have been carrying. The genius wave can recalibrate your frequency. The practice can realign your signal. The declaration can reposition your identity inside the appointed time. All of that is true, and all of that is coming. But none of it means anything if we do not first sit honestly in the cost of the years that brought you here. Because the waiting season did not arrive without a price tag. And that price tag was real. And it was paid in the currency of your actual life, in days and months and years that moved through you while you were standing still, waiting for the shift that has not yet fully come. So let us sit here for a moment. Not to wallow, not to open wounds that are in the process of healing, but to honor what was taken. Because honor is not the same as bitterness. Honor is the act of looking clearly at what happened and saying, yes, this cost something real, and I refuse to pretend that it did not, even as I trust that it was not wasted. The years of waiting took relationships from you, not just the romantic ones, though those losses are real and they deserve to be named, but friendships that could not survive the distance that your season created, connections that withered because you did not have the energy in the depths of the waiting to tend them the way they needed to be tended, people who drifted because you were not able to show up as the fullest version of yourself. Because that version was still being formed in the hidden place. And the people around you needed someone who was already finished when you were still in the process of becoming. You watched some of those people move toward others who could give them what you could not give in that season. And you told yourself it was fine. And sometimes it was fine. And sometimes it was a loss that you have never fully named out loud. The years of waiting took career ground from you. There are positions you did not pursue because the season had you so drained that the courage required to pursue them was not available. There are opportunities that appeared at the wrong moment, when you were too deep in the fog to recognize them clearly enough to move toward them with the confidence that would have made the difference. There are versions of your professional life that exist in an alternate timeline where the waiting season ended 2 years earlier. And in that alternate timeline, you are standing in a different place than you are standing right now. You know this. You have thought about it. And you have tried to make peace with it. with varying degrees of success on various different days. The years of waiting took something from your freedom. The freedom to speak your biggest dreams without the protective disclaimer. The freedom to say out loud what you believed you were capable of without immediately softening it for the comfort of an audience that was not sure they believed it. At some point in the long waiting, you learn to make yourself smaller in the telling. You learn to introduce your dreams with hedges, with qualifications, with the preemptive apology of someone who has been disappointed enough times that they have decided to lower the ceiling before anyone else can lower it for them. And that shrinking was a survival strategy. It kept you safe from a particular kind of hurt, but it also slowly separated you from the full signal version of the person you were always meant to be. And the distance between where you shrank to and where you were always meant to stand became one of the quieter griefs of this season. And perhaps the deepest thing the waiting took from you, the thing that is hardest to admit and, therefore, the most important to name, is some portion of your faith in yourself. Not your faith in God necessarily, though that too has had its dark nights, but your faith in your own discernment. Your faith that what you sense about your own life is accurate. Your faith that the knowing inside you, the one that has been saying something is coming, something is shifting. You are not finished. There is more, is a reliable narrator and not a comforting illusion. The waiting, when it extends beyond what feels reasonable, begins to whisper a very specific and very damaging question. What if I was wrong about myself? What if the thing I believed I was built for is not actually coming? What if the dream was the delusion and this plateau is the reality? You have heard that whisper. You have argued with it. And on some nights, when the arguing felt too exhausting to sustain, you let it sit with you in the dark without fully answering it. I want you to know that I am not moving past any of this too quickly. I am sitting here with you in it because it deserves to be sat with. Because the chosen one who arrives at their moment of breakthrough without having first honored the cost of the journey is a chosen one who carries unprocessed grief into their new season. And that unprocessed grief becomes the thing that complicates the very blessing they have been waiting for. Honor what it cost. Name what was taken. Not to assign blame, not to build a case against your own life, but to complete the grief so that the grief does not follow you through the door that is about to open. There is a man in the ancient text whose story belongs in this moment of the message. His name was Joseph. And I want to tell you only the hard part of his story right now, because the triumphant ending is not where this part of the message lives. Joseph was a young man who carried something inside him that the people around him could not contain. His brothers felt it as a threat. His father felt it as a love so particular it bordered on favoritism. And the dreams that moved through Joseph in the night were so vivid, so specific, so architecturally precise in their prophecy that they could not be explained away. Joseph was a chosen one. And chosen ones, in Joseph's era as in yours, have a way of generating a specific kind of reaction in the people nearest to them. Not always hatred, sometimes just a discomfort that grows into distance, sometimes just a quiet, persistent resistance that has no clean explanation. What happened to Joseph was this: he was taken from everything familiar. He was sold by the people who should have protected him. He was placed in a foreign environment where his gifts were not immediately legible. He was falsely accused of something he did not do. He was imprisoned for a crime he did not commit. He interpreted dreams for people who forgot him the moment his usefulness to them was past. And he waited. He waited in the pit. He waited in Potiphar's house. He waited in the prison. He waited for years upon years in a sequence of locations that each looked like the end of the story, and each turned out to be another chamber in a preparation he could not yet see the shape of. The Bible does not give us a full account of what those years cost Joseph emotionally. The text moves quickly through the waiting and dwells longer on the arrival. But we know he was human. We know he felt the weight of betrayal, because the text tells us that when he finally saw his brothers again, he had to remove himself from the room to weep. That weeping was not the weeping of a man who had processed everything cleanly. That weeping was the release of years of compressed grief, years during which the cost of the journey had been accumulated and carried and set aside because there was nothing to do with it yet. The tears came when the resolution came, because that is when the body finally understood that it was safe to release what it had been holding. You may be closer to your own release than you know. The grief that surfaces in you as you hear this may not be a sign that things are getting worse. It may be the first indication that your body is beginning to understand that the long carrying is almost over, that something in the deep cellular intelligence of your being is sensing the approach of the moment when it will finally be safe to put down what you have been holding. The cost was real. What was taken was genuinely taken. The relationships, the career ground, the freedom to dream at full volume, the portions of your self-trust that the waiting eroded, these were real losses. They deserve to be named as losses before they can be fully transformed into the testimony of someone who came through something and arrived on the other side with a depth of character that the easy road could never have produced. Because that is the other side of this truth. The thing the waiting produced in you, the patience that is not passivity, the faith that has been tested past the point of convenience and is therefore no longer fragile, the capacity for empathy that only comes from having sat in the dark long enough to know what it actually feels like, the rootedness that comes from having had everything stripped away and finding that something in you remained. Those are not consolation prizes. They are the actual equipment of the calling. They are the things that will make you dangerous to every force that has been working against your destiny. Not dangerous in the way that fear makes you dangerous. Dangerous in the way that truth makes you dangerous. In the way that a person who has been through the fire and come out without the smell of smoke on them is dangerous to every lie that says the fire will destroy you. You paid the price, every year of it, every night of it, every silent morning of it. And not one day of that price was wasted, even the days that felt like pure loss, even the days that had no visible redemption in them at the time. Every single day was being woven into something, and what it was being woven into is what comes next. What you just did in the previous part of this message took a particular kind of courage. You sat with the cost without flinching away from it. You let the grief of the years be named accurately instead of wrapped too quickly in the language of silver linings. And that honesty is not weakness. That honesty is the final clearing before something new can take root, because a field that has not been properly cleared cannot receive a new planting, no matter how good the seed is. You have been doing the clearing, and now I want to give you a framework that will change the way you understand every single year of the season you have just been honest about. There are two ancient concepts that belong to this moment in the message. Not academic concepts to be studied from a distance, but living, breathing frameworks that will reach into the texture of your actual experience and rearrange the way it looks from the inside. The first is something that appears throughout the sacred text and throughout the wisdom literature of nearly every spiritual tradition that has endured long enough to be worth listening to. It is called the wilderness season, and I want to define it for you with the precision it deserves, because it has been misunderstood, misapplied, and over-spiritualized to the point where it has lost its practical power. The wilderness season is not a metaphor for a bad day or a difficult week. It is a specific and identifiable period of a chosen one's life characterized by three simultaneous experiences that arrive together and tend to last longer than anyone around them can fully understand. The first experience is isolation. Not necessarily physical isolation, though sometimes it presents that way. More often, it is the interior isolation of feeling that no one in your immediate environment can fully comprehend the depth of what you are carrying or the reality of what you sense is coming. You are surrounded by people and simultaneously alone in the most important room of your inner life. The second experience is disorientation. The familiar markers that used to tell you where you were and how you were doing have stopped working. The metrics that used to make sense, the visible signs of progress, the feedback from the people around you, the feeling of forward movement, none of them are giving you reliable information anymore. You feel like you are navigating without instruments. And the third experience is the particular spiritual pressure of being in a place that does not look like the destination, but does not feel like the old life either. You are between. You have left something, and you have not yet arrived somewhere. And the between place is the most disorienting place a human being can inhabit, because it has no landmarks. Moses knew this place. He spent 40 years in the wilderness before the burning bush appeared. 40 years is not a metaphor. It is 4 decades of a human life lived in the between place, with no visible evidence that the promise was still intact, with no external confirmation that the calling was real, with nothing but the interior knowing and the faithfulness of a God who was doing something in the hidden place that Moses could not see from where he was standing. And then the bush burned, and the instruction came. And the entire 40 years revealed itself not as wasted time, but as the exact and necessary preparation for a task that would have destroyed a less formed man. Elijah knew this place. He sat under a juniper tree and told God he had had enough. He was not performing despair. He was a man at the end of his resources, in the wilderness between what he had given and what had not yet come back. And God did not rebuke him. God sent an angel with food and water and said, "The journey is too great for you. Eat, rest." And then Elijah rose and continued. The wilderness did not disqualify him. The wilderness was the passage. Your wilderness is not a punishment. I need you to receive that not as a consoling platitude, but as a structural truth about how divine preparation works. The wilderness is the place where what is unnecessary is removed, where the dependencies that would have complicated the next season are dissolved, where the character is deepened past the point that comfortable circumstances could ever take it, where the roots grow down in the darkness, so that when the growth above the ground begins, it is anchored in something that cannot be shaken by the weight of what is coming. The wilderness does not weaken the chosen one. It sets them apart for the divine. It produces in them a quality of readiness that the easy road, the road with visible signs of progress and consistent external validation, and a timeline that made sense to everyone watching, could never have produced. You are not still in the wilderness because you failed. You are still in the wilderness because what is being prepared in you required more time than you originally allocated for it. And the divine economy does not cut the preparation short because the student is uncomfortable. It completes the preparation because the task ahead is real. And the task ahead requires someone who has been through exactly what you have been through. Now I want to bring you the second concept. And this one lives in the sensory, symbolic language of the sacred text, with a power that is difficult to fully translate into ordinary speech. But I am going to try, because this is the concept that belongs to where you are right now, at this exact moment in this message, at this exact moment in your life. It is called the midnight hour. In the symbolic language of Scripture and of the wisdom traditions that drew from it, midnight is not simply the middle of the night. Midnight is the threshold. It is the precise point where the darkest part of the darkness gives way to the first invisible movement toward morning. It is the moment that feels, from the inside, like the furthest point from any light, but that is from the outside and from above, already the turning point. The darkness does not get darker after midnight. After midnight, even when the darkness is still total, the direction has already changed. The movement has already begun. What feels like the deepest night is already, in the architecture of time, the beginning of the day. In the book of Acts, Paul and Silas were in prison at midnight, not at 9 in the morning when the faith is fresh, not at noon when the light is strongest. At midnight, in chains, in the deepest cell, at the furthest point from any visible deliverance. And at midnight they sang, not because the circumstances had changed, not because someone had come to tell them that help was on the way, but because something in them knew, at a frequency below rational explanation, that midnight is not where the story ends. Midnight is where the earthquake begins, and the earthquake came, and the chains fell, and the doors opened at midnight. The reason this concept belongs to your life right now is this. I do not know exactly where you are in your night. I do not know if it is 10 o'clock and you still have some reserves. I do not know if it is 2 in the morning and you have been running on nothing but determination and old prayers for longer than you can comfortably admit. But I know this. You would not be in this message at this depth if you were not somewhere in the night. And I know, with the same settled certainty that Paul and Silas sang from, that the fact that you are still here, still listening, still refusing to let go of the knowing that something is coming, means that you are not in the middle of a night that has no morning. You are in the midnight hour of a night that is already invisibly turning. At midnight, when everyone around you thought it was all over, when the visible evidence had stopped cooperating, when the timeline you had hoped for had long since passed, when even your own heart was struggling to maintain the frequency of trust, heaven began to move. Not tomorrow, not when things look better. At midnight, in the darkness, in the chains, in the cell, heaven began to move. The wilderness is not your permanent address. It is your preparation ground. And the midnight hour is not the end of your story. It is the threshold of the chapter that makes everything before it makes sense. These are not comforting ideas. They are architectural realities built into the structure of how chosen ones move through time and arrive at their appointed moments. And you are in the architecture right now. Even when you cannot see the blueprint, the wilderness sets you apart. The midnight hour is turning, and what is moving in the unseen realm toward your life right now is not small. It is not a minor adjustment or a slight improvement. It is the kind of arrival that chosen ones spend years in the wilderness preparing to receive. And the preparation is nearly complete. What God has set in motion for your life, no delay has the authority to cancel. The wilderness could not cancel it. The midnight hour could not extinguish it. The years of waiting, with all of their cost and all of their grief and all of their quiet erosion of the easy certainties, could not revoke what has been written over you since before you knew you were the one it was written over. The wilderness is not a punishment. It is a preparation. And at midnight, when everyone thought it was finished, heaven began to move. something is already moving. You may not have the visible evidence of it yet, and I am not going to ask you to pretend that you do. But there is a difference between visible movement and actual movement, and the chosen one who has just come through the understanding of the wilderness season. And the midnight hour is now positioned to feel the difference. Because what is coming toward your life right now is not waiting for the conditions to be perfect before it begins moving. It has already begun moving. The earthquake that Paul and Silas experienced did not begin when the chains fell. It began beneath the surface in the invisible place long before any sound was heard above ground. And the shaking that is coming in your life, the divine interruption that this message has been pointing toward from the very first word, has already begun beneath the surface of what you can see. So I want to be specific with you now. Because chosen ones in the final stretch of a wilderness season do not need more beautiful language about the general idea of something coming. They need someone to look them in the eye and describe, with the precision of genuine knowing, what is actually about to change, not in vague, inspirational strokes. In the concrete, recognizable textures of real life. Because when the change begins to arrive, you need to be able to recognize it. And you need to know that what you are seeing is not coincidence or wishful thinking, but the actual movement of the thing that has been promised. The first area that is about to shift is your inner world. And I want to start here rather than with the external circumstances, because the inner shift always precedes the outer one. And if you are only watching the outside for evidence of movement, you will miss the first and most important signal. In the coming days, you are going to notice something changing in the quality of your own thoughts. The loop that has been running, the one that cycles through the same fears and the same questions, and the same calculations about whether you are behind, and whether the promise is still real, and whether you have done enough, that loop is going to begin losing its grip. Not because you have solved the problems that generated it, but because something in you is completing a shift that has been happening below your conscious awareness throughout this entire season. The frequency is changing. The signal that the wilderness and the midnight hour and the long waiting have been producing in the deep places of your character is beginning to surface. And when it surfaces, it changes the quality of the thoughts that run through you, the way a change in the weather changes the quality of the light in a room. Same room, different light. You will notice that clarity is arriving in places that were foggy before. You will notice that the next right step is becoming visible in areas where you could not see more than a few inches ahead. You will notice that the restlessness that has been your constant companion is beginning to settle into something that feels more like readiness than anxiety. Pay attention to these internal shifts. They are the first confirmation that the earthquake has begun beneath the surface. The second area that is about to shift is your relationships. And this shift is going to feel strange at first because it will not arrive as a grand entrance of new people and a dramatic exit of old ones. It will arrive quietly, in the texture of ordinary interactions, and you will only recognize it for what it is if you are paying the kind of attention that this season has been training you to pay. Some people who have been fixtures in your life are going to begin a natural and gradual withdrawal, not because of conflict, not because of any single event that can be pointed to as the cause, but because the frequency you are now carrying is shifting, and some of the connections in your life were built on an older version of your frequency. And as you return to your true signal, those connections will naturally loosen. Do not chase them. Do not try to hold people in place who are being called elsewhere. The loosening is not loss, it is the clearing of space. And into that cleared space, new people are going to begin appearing. Not dramatically, not with any announcement of their significance. They will appear in ordinary ways, in conversations that go deeper than expected, in meetings that seem accidental but carry the specific weight of divine arrangement. They will be people who speak the language of what you are becoming rather than the language of what you used to be. They will be people who do not need you to make yourself smaller for their comfort. They will be people in whose presence you feel the permission to be fully what you are. When these people begin to appear, receive them. Do not hold them at the distance that the long season of disappointment has trained you to maintain. These connections are not accidental. They are part of the architecture of what is coming. They are being placed in your path because the next chapter of your life cannot be walked alone. And heaven is already assembling the people who will walk it with you. The third area that is about to shift is your sense of purpose. And this is the shift that chosen ones in a long waiting season tend to be most afraid to believe in, because it is the one that has been deferred the longest and the one that carries the most accumulated disappointment. The question of what you are meant to do, the question that has followed you through every job and every attempt to find the thing that matches the interior calling, that question is about to begin answering itself, not through a dramatic revelation that descends from the sky with full clarity and a detailed roadmap, but through a series of small, precise, unmistakable confirmations that arrive in ordinary moments and point in a consistent direction. A door will open that you did not knock on. An invitation will arrive that fits the shape of what you have been carrying inside you with an accuracy that takes your breath away. A conversation will happen that names something you have known privately but never heard spoken publicly. And in each of these moments, something in you will recognize the direction. Not analyze it, not calculate it, but recognize it with the deep cellular certainty of a person who has been waiting a very long time and is finally seeing the thing they were waiting for. Now I want to speak to you about what not to do in this period. Because the arrival of movement after a long stillness creates a specific temptation, and that temptation is dangerous enough that it deserves to be named directly. The temptation is to accelerate, to compensate for the years of waiting, by moving so quickly toward what is now becoming visible that you outrun the pace at which it is being given to you. The wilderness trained you in the patience of becoming. Do not abandon that. Training the moment the doors begin to open. The chosen one who has been positioned for a specific purpose and then rushes into it before the full arrangement is in place creates a different kind of delay than the one the waiting season created. So move when you are moved to move. Rest when you are moved to rest. Do not manufacture momentum out of the anxiety of finally being in motion. Let the motion be led rather than driven. The second thing not to do is to return, in any form, to the relationships, the environments, or the internal narratives that belong to the old frequency. There will be a pull. There is always a pull backward when the forward movement begins, because the familiar, even when it is limiting, feels safer than the new, even when the new is where you belong. Lot's wife looked back, and the looking back cost her everything that the forward movement had prepared for her. This is not a story about disobedience. It is a story about the gravitational pull of the familiar at the exact moment of transition, and the cost of allowing that pull to turn you around when everything in the divine plan is set up for you to keep moving forward. The third thing not to do is to wait for permission from the people around you before you begin to inhabit what is coming. The chosen one's arrival at their moment of purpose rarely comes with unanimous support from their immediate environment. Joseph's brothers did not applaud his dreams. David's father did not include him in the lineup when Samuel came to anoint a king. The people who have known you in your wilderness season may not immediately have the framework to understand the person you are becoming as you step out of it. Their confusion or their skepticism is not a stop sign. It is simply evidence that they are seeing you through the lens of who you were rather than through the lens of who you are now. Their vision will adjust, but do not wait for the adjustment before you move. Because something inside you is already moving. Something inside you, right now, in this moment, as you have been listening to this message, has been shifting. The frequency is recalibrating. The signal is strengthening. The three areas of your life that are about to transform, your inner world, your relationships, and your sense of purpose, are already in the first invisible stages of their transformation. You cannot see all of it yet, but you can feel it. And that feeling is not wishful thinking. That feeling is the chosen one's accurate perception of something real that is already underway. I want to ask you to do one more thing right now. If something in this part of the message landed in you with the weight of recognition, if the description of what is coming resonated with something you have been quietly sensing but had not yet found words for, type the word receive in the comment below. Not as a performance, as a declaration of your willingness to accept what is already moving toward you. Because there is a posture of reception that chosen ones sometimes forget to take, particularly after a long season of striving and holding on and fighting to maintain their faith. The posture of open hands. The posture of I am ready to receive what has been prepared for me. Type receive if you are in that posture right now. And if this message has been speaking to someone in your life who is also in the final stretch of a long waiting season, someone who has been in the midnight hour longer than is comfortable, and who needs to hear that the turning has already begun, share this message with them today, not tomorrow. Today. Because the message that reaches someone at the right moment is not a piece of content. It is the hand of heaven using the most ordinary available channel to make sure the right word reaches the right person at the right time. Something is coming. It has already begun. And you were not almost ready for it. You were ready the moment the frequency in you began to match the frequency of everything that was prepared for you before the foundation of the world. That is the difference between information and transformation. Information enters the mind and stays there until something displaces it. Transformation enters the body, the spirit, the deep cellular memory of who you are, and it changes the architecture from the inside out. What has been happening in you across this message is not the former, it is the latter. And because it is the latter, I want to give you something specific to carry with you when you walk away from this. Not another idea, not another concept, a name. Your name. Not the name on your documents or the name your parents gave you or the name the world has been calling you through this long season of waiting. The name that belongs to the person you have become, through everything you have walked through. Because chosen ones who are crossing from one season into another need to know what to call the version of themselves that is emerging. They need a name that is precise enough to be anchoring and true enough to be worth carrying. The name I want to give you today is this: you are a cycle breaker. I want to be very specific about what that means, because it is not a motivational label designed to make you feel powerful for a moment and then fade. It is a precise description of a particular kind of calling that belongs to a particular kind of person. And when you hear the full meaning of it, you will recognize yourself in it with the accuracy of someone hearing their own name called across a crowded room. A cycle breaker is someone who was placed at a specific point in a lineage, a family line, a community, a generation, with the specific assignment of stopping something that has been running unchecked and passing itself forward through time. Not every chosen one carries this particular assignment, but many do. And the way you recognize a cycle breaker is this: they are almost always the one in their family, their community, their generation, who felt different from the beginning, who could not simply accept the patterns around them as inevitable, who felt, even as a child, a friction with the way things were that they could not fully explain, who tried at various points in their life to simply fit in and carry the patterns forward the way everyone else seemed to be doing, and who found that they could not sustain it. That friction was not a personality flaw. It was not stubbornness or pride or an inability to be grateful for what they had. That friction was the assignment, announcing itself. That friction was the cycle breaker, in you refusing to pass forward what was never meant to continue. What has been arrested in your life in this season, what has been brought into divine custody, as this message has been describing from the very beginning, is not simply a personal obstacle. It is a generational pattern. Something that has been moving through your lineage, or your community, or your sphere of influence, taking from people who came before you the same things it took from you: relationships that could not be sustained, purpose that could not be fully realized, resources that could not be fully received, and it has been moving toward the people who will come after you with the same appetite. And you were placed at this specific point in the chain with the specific calling to stop it. The arrest that God is bringing is not only for your benefit, it is for everyone whose life your life touches. It is for the children who will grow up in the environment your breakthrough creates. It is for the people in your circle who have been watching you hold your faith through the long waiting, and who will have their own faith recalibrated when they see what happens when the appointed time arrives. You are a cycle breaker. The thing that stopped with you did not stop by accident. It stopped because you were built to stop it. And the long wilderness season, the midnight hour, the grief of what was taken, the quiet erosion of easy certainty, all of it was the cycle breaker being formed in the specific way that this specific assignment required. Not anyone could carry this. Not anyone could sustain the frequency of this calling through a season this long without either abandoning the assignment or diluting it into something more comfortable. You did neither. You stayed. And the staying is the evidence that you are exactly who this calling was given to. Now I want to lead you through something. A visualization exercise that I want you to enter as fully as you are able. Not as a performance of engagement, but as a genuine interior experience. If you are somewhere you can close your eyes, close them. If you cannot, let your gaze soften and allow your attention to move inward. Picture yourself standing at a threshold. It is a doorway, the exact right size for you, in the exact right place, set into a wall that is neither ancient nor modern, but simply permanent. The threshold is made of something solid. You can feel the solidity of it even from where you are standing. And you are standing just at the edge of it, with your toes at the line where the floor on your side meets the floor on the other side. Now look back. Do not turn away from the threshold, but allow your peripheral awareness to take in what is behind you. See the landscape of the season you have been in, the long road that brought you here, the places where you stopped and rested because you could not go further, the places where you kept moving when everything in you wanted to stop, the relationships that were there for parts of the journey, then were not, the moments of clarity that came and sustained you, the moments of darkness that tested you and did not take you down, the grief, the growth, the long, quiet, unglamorous faithfulness that no one fully witnessed, but that heaven recorded with perfect accuracy. Look at all of it, not with shame, not with regret, with the eyes of someone who is high enough now to see the full shape of the road and understand, for the first time with full clarity, that every turn of it was purposeful, every detour was a course correction, every closed door was a redirection toward the one you are standing in front of right now. Now look up. Look forward through the threshold into what is on the other side. You may not be able to see it in full detail. That is appropriate. The other side of a threshold is not fully visible until you have crossed it, I assert to say. But you can sense it. You can feel the quality of the air that is coming through from the other side. It is different from the air behind you. It carries something that the long season did not carry. It carries the particular quality of the appointed time made visible, of the promise become present, of the thing that was written over your life before you were born, arriving at the moment of its manifestation. Let yourself feel that quality. Let it reach you through the threshold before you have even crossed it, because it is already reaching you. It has been reaching you through this entire message. And now, in this visualization, I want you to notice something. You are not standing outside the threshold looking at a door that is still closed. You are standing at an open threshold. The door is already open. It has been open. You are already there. You are already at the crossing point. The journey that felt like it was still taking you somewhere has brought you here. And here is the threshold. And the threshold is open. And you are standing at it right now. Not someday. Not when things change. Not when you feel more ready. Right now, in this moment, at this exact crossing point. This is not a metaphor for something that will happen later. This is the reality of where you are standing right now in the spiritual geography of your life. The threshold is real. The opening is real. And the person standing at it, the cycle breaker, the one who held the frequency through the wilderness and the midnight hour and the long grief of the waiting, is you, exactly as you are, with every scar and every question and every imperfectly processed grief and every shred of faith that has been tested and refined and made more true through the testing. Exactly as you are, standing at the threshold, already there. Now, before you open your eyes or bring your attention fully back, I want to speak a few words over you, not as decoration, as a genuine blessing placed at the threshold. May the clarity that has been building in you through this season now surface fully and stay. May the relationships that are coming find you with your hands open and your heart ready to receive what they carry. May the purpose that has been forming in the hidden place now step into the light of the season that is opening. May the cycles that have been running in your lineage stop at you, completely and permanently, so that what flows forward from your life carries only what was always meant to flow. May the frequency of your truest self, the one that was yours before the noise of the world layered over it, ring clear and strong and unmistakable from this day forward. May the arrest that is coming bring freedom to every area of your life that has been held by something that was never meant to hold it. May the warning you receive today be the last warning you need before the arrival, and may the threshold you are standing at right now be the last threshold you cross before the open country of your appointed season spreads out before you in all the fullness that heaven has been preparing since before you knew you were the one it was being prepared for. You are a cycle breaker, and the cycle breaks here. You are still standing at that threshold, and I want you to stay in that posture for just a little longer, because what comes next in this message is not abstract. It is not more language about the general shape of what is coming. It is specific. It is practical. It is the answer to the question that every chosen one eventually asks after the visualization, after the blessing, after the recognition of where they are standing. The question is this: what do I actually do now? Not in the spiritual sense, though the spiritual dimension is always present. In the practical, Monday morning, real life, what are the actual movements available to me right now sense? Because the threshold experience is real, and the blessing is real, and the frequency shift is real, but you still have a life to live on the other side of this message. You still have decisions to make and relationships to navigate and a purpose to step into. And you need more than beautiful language to do those things well. You need a map of the 3 areas that are transforming and a clear understanding of what your participation in the transformation looks like from the inside. So here is what I want you to do right now, before the day moves any further. I want you to take out something you can write on. A phone, a notebook, a scrap of paper, anything that can hold words. Because the practice of writing something down is not a self-help cliche. It is an act of declaration. When you write something down, you are transferring it from the interior world, where it exists as a possibility, into the exterior world, where it begins to function as a commitment. And the 3 areas I am about to describe need to move from possibility into commitment in your life today, not next week, not when things settle, today. The first area is relationships, and your practical action here is not complicated, but it requires a specific kind of honesty that can be uncomfortable. I want you to write down the name of one person in your life who has consistently made you feel smaller than you are. Not necessarily a person who has done anything dramatically wrong, not necessarily someone you need to confront or cut off dramatically. Just one person whose presence in your life over the consistent pattern of your interactions with them has left you feeling like the ceiling on your life is lower than it actually is. Write the name down, and alongside the name, write these words: I release this relationship from the position of authority it has held over my self-perception. I do not release the person. I release the authority. Because there is a difference between having someone in your life and giving someone's opinion of you the power to define the boundaries of what you believe is possible for you. The releasing of that authority is the practical movement in the area of relationships. It does not require a conversation. It does not require a dramatic exit. It requires an interior decision, made concretely and written down, that you are no longer going to allow the smallness of someone else's vision for your life to function as a ceiling for the fullness of what heaven has written over it. And on the same page, write down the name of one person who has consistently made you feel seen, supported, and expanded rather than contracted. Someone whose presence in your life has left you feeling like more of yourself rather than less. This person may not be in your immediate circle right now. They may be someone you have not spoken to in months. Write the name down, and alongside it, write these words: I will reach out to this person within the next 48 hours, not with an agenda, not with a request, simply with the acknowledgement that their presence in my life has mattered, and that I am in a season where I am choosing to move toward what expands me rather than away from it. That one phone call, that one message, is a practical relationship movement that costs nothing and carries the frequency of a chosen one who is beginning to curate their environment with intention rather than accepting by default whatever the season has placed around them. The second area is purpose. And the practical action here is one that most people in a long waiting season have stopped allowing themselves to do because the repeated experience of disappointment has made the act of articulation feel dangerous. I want you to write down, in one sentence, The thing you believe you were built to do. Not the job title, not the career category. The actual interior calling. The thing that, when you imagine yourself doing it fully and freely, produces a feeling in your body that is distinctly different from anything else. Some people describe it as expansion. Some people describe it as rightness. Some people describe it as the feeling of finally being the correct size for the space they are in. Whatever that feeling is for you, trace it back to the activity or the contribution or the way of serving that produces it, and write one sentence that names it. You do not have to show this sentence to anyone. You do not have to have a plan for how it becomes your life. You simply have to be willing to write it down clearly and honestly, without the protective hedging that the long season has trained you to wrap around your deepest dreams. Because the purpose that is clarifying in this season cannot clarify fully through fog. It needs you to be willing to look at it directly. And the writing of that one honest sentence is the looking. Now, alongside that sentence, write down one small action that points in the direction of that purpose and that you can take this week. Not a massive career pivot, not a life-overturning decision. One small, concrete, available action that moves you one step closer to the thing you just named. Send one email, make one phone call, sign up for one class, attend one event. Reach out to one person who is already operating in the space you are being called into. The step does not have to be large. It has to be real. Because the chosen one at the threshold does not cross it with a leap. They cross it with a step. And the step is available to you this week. The third area is resources and opportunities. And this is where I want to address something directly. Because chosen ones in a long waiting season often develop a specific and understandable relationship with scarcity that needs to be consciously examined as the new season opens. The long waiting creates a particular posture of the hands, closed or partially closed, in the protective gesture of someone who has learned that resources are scarce and that holding tightly to what little is available is the way to survive. That posture served you in the wilderness. It kept you alive through a season that genuinely required careful management of limited resources. But that posture, carried into the new season, will prevent you from receiving what is now becoming available to you. Because open hands can receive what closed hands cannot. The practical action in the area of resources is this. I want you to identify one area of your life where you have been operating from a scarcity posture that is no longer serving you. One area where you have been holding tightly out of fear, rather than wisely out of discernment. And I want you to identify one concrete act of generosity or openness that you can make this week that represents the choice to operate from abundance rather than scarcity. Not a financially irresponsible act. Not something that puts you at genuine risk, but something that signals to your own nervous system and to the economy of heaven that you understand the season has changed, that you are no longer operating from the posture of someone who is surviving. You are beginning to operate from the posture of someone who is receiving their due. Because this is the truth about the resource shift that is coming. It does not arrive to someone who is still gripping. It arrives to someone who has made room. The opportunities that are aligned with your appointed season cannot fully land in a life that has no open space in it. The relationships that are coming cannot establish themselves in a social environment that is completely locked down by fear and protective distance. The purpose that is clarifying cannot fully actualize in a schedule and a set of daily choices that leave no room for it. The practical work of this season is the work of making room, releasing the grip, opening the hands, creating the space, saying yes to the small version of the thing before the large version arrives, because the small yes is the signal to heaven that you are ready to receive the large one. Now here is something I need to say clearly, and I want you to receive it not as pressure, but as permission. You do not have to have all of this figured out before you begin. The cycle breaker does not cross the threshold with a complete map of the other side. They cross it with the clarity of the next step and the trust that the step after that will become visible once they are in motion. The clarity you have been waiting for, the full picture, the detailed plan, the certainty that the risk is worth taking. That clarity does not precede the crossing, it accompanies it. It arrives as you move. And the movement, the imperfect, incomplete, one step at a time movement, is the act of faith that the appointed season requires. And I want to speak for a moment to the part of you that is still afraid. The part that has heard everything in this message and recognized it and felt it land, and then quietly wondered, but what if this time is like all the other times? What if I take the step and the ground is not there? What if I open my hands and what was promised does not arrive? I want to speak to that part of you with complete honesty. I cannot guarantee your specific outcome. No voice in any message can do that. What I can tell you is what the pattern of divine faithfulness across every generation of chosen ones has consistently shown. The one who crosses the threshold always finds ground on the other side. It may not look exactly like what they imagined. The ground may be different in texture or in color, or in elevation from what the waiting season led them to expect. But it is there. It has always been there. The threshold is not set over an abyss. It is set over the next solid place in a journey that has always at every point been held. The three areas are moving. Your relationships are being curated by a hand greater than your own. Your purpose is clarifying with a precision that your effort alone could never have produced. Your resources and opportunities are aligning with a generosity that the scarcity posture of the waiting season could not yet access. And your practical participation in all three of these movements is available to you today in the specific, writable, doable actions that I have just described. Write them down, take the step, open the hands, cross the threshold. The ground is there. It has always been there, and it has been waiting for exactly the weight of the person you have become through everything you walked through to get here. We are at the end of this message together. And before I say anything else, I want to do something that does not happen often enough in the kind of content you consume in the ordinary course of your days. I want to thank you, not in the performative way that closes out a transaction, not in the way that is designed to make you feel good about having stayed long enough to reach the final section. In the genuine way, the way one person thanks another person for showing up to something that required real courage to show up to, because you did not have to stay. You could have left at any point in this message. The way most people leave most things, the moment the content stops being easy or entertaining or immediately rewarding. But you stayed through the part where the grief was named. You stayed through the part where the cost of the years was honestly calculated and not rushed past. You stayed through the wilderness and the midnight hour and the threshold and the visualization and the practical actions. You stayed through all of it. And the part of you that stayed is not the casual browsing part. That part left a long time ago. The part of you that stayed is the part that knew from somewhere below the level of rational explanation that this message was not content. It was correspondence. It was heaven using the most ordinary available channel to make sure a specific word reached a specific person at a specific moment in a specific season. You are that person. And you stayed. And I want you to know that the staying itself was an act of faith. Because choosing to remain present for a message that speaks to the deepest and most tender parts of your experience, when those parts have been disappointed before, when they have reached toward hope and found it retreat, when they have invested in expectation and watched it go unrewarded, that choosing is not small. It is the exact quality of faith that the threshold moment requires. And you demonstrated it today, right here, by you not leaving. Now I want to tell you something about the people who are in this message with you right now, because you need to know that you are not alone in this room. Across the world, at this same moment, other chosen ones are listening to these same words. In different time zones, in different languages of the heart, in different specific circumstances, but in the same essential season. Some of them are in cities. Some of them are in small towns where no one around them speaks the frequency they carry. Some of them are in seasons of visible difficulty. And some of them are in seasons of invisible difficulty, which is sometimes the harder kind. All of them came to this message the way you came to it. Not by accident, not by random recommendation, by the same divine calibration that has been threading through your entire story, placing the right word in your path at the right moment, using every available channel to make sure the transmission got through. You are not sitting in this room alone. All across the world, other chosen ones are walking into this exact same message. They are feeling what you are feeling. They are recognizing what you are recognizing. They are standing at the same threshold that you are standing at, in their own specific geography of circumstance, with their own specific version of the grief that was named, and the promise that is arriving, and the fact that you are all here at the same time, in the same season, receiving the same transmission, is not a coincidence. It is a gathering. It is the chosen ones of this generation being called to their threshold moment at the same appointed time, and you are one of them. You have always been one of them. Now I want to give you one final practice before this message closes. And this one is not a cognitive exercise or a declaration or a writing prompt. This one is a physical practice of release, because the body holds what the mind cannot always process, and some of what you have been carrying through this long season has settled into the physical weight of you in a way that needs to be intentionally set down. I want you to take a slow, full breath. Breathe in as deeply as you can. And as you breathe in, imagine that you are gathering everything you have been carrying, not selecting the heavy things and leaving the manageable things. Everything. The grief about the relationships, the frustration about the career ground, the quiet erosion of self-trust, the exhaustion of the long midnight, the weight of the unanswered prayers, the disappointment of the doors that closed, the loneliness of carrying a frequency that not everyone around you could receive. Breathe all of it in, gather it all into one held breath, and now release it, slowly, completely, until your lungs are empty. And as you release the breath, imagine that everything you gathered is leaving your body with it. Not because the experiences were not real, not because the grief was not valid, but because you are standing at the threshold now, and the threshold is not a place to carry the full weight of the wilderness into. You can bring the wisdom. You can bring the character that was formed in the long season. You can bring the depth and the rootedness and the refined faith that the waiting produced. But the raw weight of it, the unprocessed heaviness of the carrying that you can set down here, at the threshold, in the last available moment before you cross, set it down. Breathe it out, and stand up a little straighter in the posture of someone who has just put down something they have been carrying for a very long time. Now, there are a few things I want to ask of you before you go. And I want to ask them in the spirit of this message, rather than in the spirit of a content creator making a call to action at the end of a video. So hear these requests in the context of everything that has been said today, in the context of one chosen one speaking to another about what it means to steward the things that have been entrusted to us. If this message reached you today, if something in it landed with the weight of truth rather than just the weight of eloquence, consider sharing it before you close this window. Not for the numbers, not for the metrics, so that the message can reach another chosen one who is walking into their Monday without anyone to name it for them. Someone who is in the midnight hour and does not yet know that midnight is the threshold. Someone who has been in the wilderness so long that they have begun to confuse the preparation with the punishment. Someone who is standing at a threshold they cannot yet see because no one has given them the language to recognize where they are standing. Your share is not a social media action. It is an act of care for someone whose name you may not even know yet. And heaven keeps a record of that kind of care. If this channel has become a place where something in you exhales, where the frequency of what is spoken here matches something you have been carrying and needing to have named, consider subscribing so that the next message finds you the way this one did. And if you feel moved to support the work of creating these messages, the work of finding the language for what chosen ones in a long season are carrying, and making sure it reaches the people who need it, there is a way to do that in the description below. Not for me, so that this transmission can continue to reach the people it was assembled for. Every contribution, regardless of size, extends the reach of this work to another chosen one who is still waiting to hear their situation named with this kind of precision. And if you have not yet subscribed and liked this message, doing both of those things right now is one of the most direct ways you can ensure that the algorithm places this kind of content in front of the people who need it most. And there is one more thing. If the genius wave met you, somewhere in the middle of this message, if the part about the frequency of the chosen one and the 7-minute protocol and the science of what is happening in your brain during the stillness resonated with something you already knew but had not yet found a way to act on, then it is waiting for you in the pinned comment below. Not as a product being sold at the end of a message that was really just a long advertisement, as a tool that belongs to this season, as a practical instrument for the frequency recalibration that this entire message has been pointing toward. If you know it is a yes, you do not need more time to decide. The yes is already present in you. Honor it. You came into this message carrying something heavy. You stayed through every part of it. You honored the grief. You received the framework. You stood at the threshold. You wrote the names in the sentence and the step. You breathed out the weight at the threshold. And now you are standing at the end of this message as someone who is not the same as the person who arrived at the beginning of it. Not because the external circumstances have changed, because something in the interior has shifted. The frequency has moved. The signal is cleaner. The chosen one who was buried under the noise of the long season is a little more audible now, a little more present, a little more standing in the truth of their own appointed moment. Go and live from that truth, not perfectly, not without fear, but from the truth. Cycle breaker who stopped the pattern here, the one who held the frequency through the wilderness and the midnight hour and the long grief of the waiting, and arrived at the threshold and crossed it. That is who you are. That is who you have always been. And now, finally, it is time to live like it. The season of waiting has not paused. It ended. And now, before you go, I want to leave one final thing with you. Not information, not instruction, just a blessing. quiet mark placed on you at the door as you walk out. May you carry the peace of someone who has been seen completely and loved anyway. May the clarity that opened in you today stay open, even on the days when the noise tries to close it again. May every person you encounter in the coming days feel, without being able to explain why, that something in your presence gives them permission to be more fully themselves. May the purposes that has been forming in the hidden place of your long season now step into the light with the confidence of something that was always going to arrive. May the relationships that are coming carry the specific quality of people who were made for the version of you that is emerging, not the version that the waiting season temporarily convinced you to settle for being. May the arrest that heaven is executing in your life right now remove from your path every force that has been working against your destiny, every pattern that was never meant to continue, every voice that was never meant to have authority over the frequency of your calling. May what is released in your life in this season be released completely, with no residue, with no invitation to return. May you sleep tonight with the settled knowing of someone who has put down what they were carrying and picked up what was always meant to be theirs. May you wake tomorrow with the first honest evidence of the shift already visible in the quality of your thoughts, before the day has had a chance to layer its noise over the top of them, and you are chosen. You are positioned. You are at the threshold. And heaven has not taken its eyes off you for a single moment of the long season that brought you here. Go in peace, and go knowing that you are not going alone.